It was a Saturday morning, the kind where the sunlight hit just right, making the pool water glimmer like blue glass. I'd been planning to enjoy a lazy swim before heading out for errands. Coffee in hand, towel slung over my shoulder, I slid open the back door and froze. There, stretched out on a bright pink floatie in my pool, was Karen. Karen, the same Karen who'd spent the last year policing everyone's grass height, mailbox paint, and garbage can placement. The woman who had practically made herself the dictator of our homeowners association. She wasn't just dipping her toes in, she had sunglasses on, lemonade in hand, and looked as comfortable as if the pool belonged to her. "Good morning," she called, raising her cup like we were old friends. I blinked, confused. "Karen, what are you doing in my pool?" She leaned back, completely unbothered. "Oh, don't be so uptight. This is community property. HOA maintains the neighborhood, so technically, we all share the amenities." I nearly choked on my coffee. Community property? Karen, this is my private backyard. The HOA doesn't own this. I pay for it. Out of my pocket. She rolled her eyes, splashing the water lazily with her hand. Details, details. I'm just making sure it's being used properly. Wouldn't want standing water to attract mosquitoes, right? Think of me as quality control. The audacity left me speechless. I glanced at the gate, locked, of course. She must have climbed over the fence. At her age, the fact that she managed it was shocking enough. But the smug grin plastered across her face told me she was proud of herself. "You can't just break into someone's backyard and swim," I said firmly. "That's trespassing." Karen adjusted her sunglasses. "Oh please. Nobody's going to call it trespassing when I'm on the HOA board. You should be thanking me for keeping your pool in good use." I felt my jaw tighten. This wasn't just a nuisance, it was an outright invasion. And worse, she seemed to believe she had every right to be there. Before I could argue further, she kicked off the floatie, swam a few strokes, and climbed out like it was the most natural thing in the world. Water dripped off her oversized sun hat as she wrapped herself in one of my towels. "Lovely swim," she said with a satisfied sigh. "I'll be back tomorrow morning. Same time." Then, without waiting for a response, she walked through the gate, somehow unlocking it from the inside, and disappeared down the street as if nothing unusual had happened. I stood there, towel forgotten in my hand, watching her go. My pool was still rippling from her intrusion, mocking me. Karen had crossed a line. And deep down, I knew this wasn't going to be a one-time thing. This was just the beginning. The next morning, I was ready. I woke up earlier than usual, brewed my coffee, and stationed myself by the kitchen window with a clear view of the pool. Sure enough, right on schedule, Karen showed up. I watched as she strolled down the sidewalk in her oversized sun hat and beach tote, like she was headed to a resort. She approached the side gate with the same casual confidence as before. Then, to my disbelief, she reached into her bag, pulled out a key, and let herself in. A key. I nearly spit out my coffee. How on earth did Karen have a key to my gate? I'd only ever given one to my landscaper. I flung the back door open just as she kicked off her sandals. "Karen! Stop right there." She jumped slightly, then quickly regained her composure. "Oh, good morning. You're up early. Don't mind me. Just doing my morning laps." I stepped outside, crossing my arms. "How do you even have a key to my gate?" She gave me a sly smile. "Oh, sweetie, you left the spare hidden under the flower pot. Really, not the best hiding place. Anyone could have found it." My blood boiled. "That's not an invitation to use it." Karen waved me off, already walking toward the pool. "Relax. I told you, this is community property. The HOA has authority here. You might think this is your private pool, but by living here, you agreed to follow community guidelines." I clenched my fists. "Show me the guideline that says HOA members can swim in my backyard." She didn't even pause. Well, it doesn't say we can't, now does it? And besides, she lowered herself into the water with a graceful little splash. I'm on the HOA board. We're tasked with ensuring all community features are being maintained properly. That includes water features. I stared at her in disbelief. This isn't a water feature, Karen. It's my pool. She swam lazily to the far side, flipped, and pushed back toward me, completely ignoring my words. Tomato, tomato. The important thing is, I'm helping. You should be thanking me. Pools need regular circulation, after all. You're welcome. Her smugness was unbearable. It wasn't just that she was trespassing, she had convinced herself she was doing me a favor. Karen, if you don't get out of that pool right now, I'm calling the police, I threatened. That finally made her pause. She adjusted her sunglasses and smirked. Go ahead. Tell them Karen from the HOA is swimming. You think they'll side with you? Or the woman who enforces the rules around here? The confidence in her voice sent a chill down my spine. She truly believed she was untouchable. And as she floated away on her back, humming like she owned the place, I realized something important. This wasn't just about a swim. Karen was making a power move. And she wasn't going to stop anytime soon. By the third day, I'd had enough. Watching Karen float around in my pool like it was some HOA community center was eating away at me. I wasn't about to let her win. So, I went to the source, the HOA office. It was a small room inside the clubhouse, lined with filing cabinets and dusty Community First posters. The receptionist gave me a practiced smile, the kind that said I've dealt with complaints all day, what's new? I need to file a complaint, I said firmly. It's about Karen trespassing on my property. The receptionist's smile faltered. Karen, as in Karen Whitmore? I nodded. Her expression immediately shifted to something between pity and fear. She's on the board. You'll have to submit a written complaint, but I should warn you, Karen has a lot of influence here. That didn't surprise me. Still, I wrote out the complaint on the provided form, describing in detail how Karen had been breaking into my backyard, using my pool, and claiming it as HOA property. I slid the paper across the counter. The receptionist sighed, as though she already knew what would happen. We'll pass it on. 2 days later, instead of hearing back from the HOA, I got a letter in the mail. Thick envelope, official HOA letterhead, and stamped with the words, Notice of Violation. I tore it open. My stomach dropped as I read. Violation, unauthorized pool usage. According to HOA guidelines, all water features must remain accessible for inspection and use by board members. Your repeated attempts to deny access may result in fines up to $500 per occurrence. I couldn't believe my eyes. They weren't punishing Karen. They were punishing me. The paper shook in my hands. Unauthorized pool usage? It was my pool. I paid for it, maintained it, and cleaned it. And now the HOA was fining me for not letting Karen break into my yard? That evening, as if on cue, Karen appeared again. She let herself in with the spare key and smiled like the devil himself. Got your letter? She asked sweetly, sliding into the water with no shame whatsoever. I stormed toward her. You did this. You manipulated the board. She chuckled, sipping from her ever-present lemonade. Manipulated? Please. I am the board. The others listened to me. I told them you were trying to withhold access. That makes you the problem, not me. I felt rage boiling inside me, but also a creeping realization Karen wasn't just trespassing for fun. This was control. She wanted me to submit, to bend to her twisted interpretation of HOA authority. As she floated away, humming like she didn't have a care in the world, I clenched my fists and made myself a promise. If the HOA was siding with Karen, then I'd have to take matters into my own hands. I wasn't going to let her win. Not this time. The letter from the HOA kept replaying in my mind like a bad song stuck on repeat. Every time I walked past the mailbox, I half expected another envelope, another fine, another accusation, another way for Karen to twist the knife. And every evening, like clockwork, she showed up. Her routine was infuriatingly casual: key in the gate, sandals off, a smug wave in my direction, and then straight into the pool. She swam as if she were queen of the neighborhood, each stroke a reminder that I'd lost control of my own backyard. I tried locking the gate. She cut the lock. I tried moving the spare key. She somehow found another. I even considered putting up cameras, but the HOA had guidelines about exterior modifications, and who wrote those guidelines? Karen. By the end of the week, I was running on nothing but frustration and caffeine. I couldn't even enjoy my coffee by the window anymore, because the sight of her splashing around turned my stomach. That Friday, I snapped. I stormed outside as Karen floated lazily on an inflatable lounger, lemonade in one hand, sunglasses reflecting the blazing sun. "This ends today," I growled. She tilted her head and smiled like a cat that had cornered a mouse. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. It's just water. It's trespassing," I shouted. "This is my property, and I will not let you." "Your property?" She cut me off, her tone sharp now. She sat up on the lounger, eyes narrowing. "You think you're above the HOA? Let me remind you, this neighborhood has rules. And rules are meant to be enforced." I stepped closer, fists clenched. "The rules don't give you the right to invade my home." Karen smirked. "The board disagrees. And if you keep resisting, I can push for bigger fines. Maybe even foreclosure. You wouldn't want to lose your house over a pool, would you?" Her words hit like a punch to the gut. Foreclosure. Could she really pull that off? She leaned back, smug again. "Face it. You can't win. So why not stop fighting and let me enjoy my swim?" I stared at her, chest heaving, my mind racing. Every rational part of me said to call the police, to fight through legal channels, to gather evidence. But the rational part of me was being drowned out by something stronger: rage. She had humiliated me, manipulated the HOA, and now threatened my home. I walked back inside, slamming the door behind me. My reflection in the glass was one I barely recognized: tired, angry, determined. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized something important. Karen wasn't going to stop. And if I wanted my life back, I couldn't just defend myself. I needed to go on the offensive. So, I started planning. The next morning, I brewed my coffee with a calmness that surprised even me. For the first time in days, I wasn't pacing, cursing, or glaring out the window. No, today was different. Because now, I had a plan. I spent the day walking the perimeter of my yard, notebook in hand, jotting down every detail. Where Karen entered. What time she usually came by. How long she stayed. Every move of hers was a pattern, and patterns could be exploited. By noon, I had something resembling a blueprint. Not a legal strategy. Not an HOA appeal. A trap. The first step was simple: bait. Karen loved my pool because it gave her power, but also because it was easy. She could slip in whenever she pleased, without resistance. So, I needed to make it even more tempting, while making sure it was ready for her. I cleaned the water, skimmed every leaf, polished the tiles, even placed a new floatie in the corner. The place looked like a resort. I knew Karen couldn't resist. The second step: deterrent, disguised as maintenance. I stopped by the hardware store and picked up a few items: motion sensor lights, a pressure alarm, and a set of sprinklers with timers. I spent the afternoon wiring, setting, and testing them all. On the surface, it looked like I was just upgrading my backyard. But in reality, I was turning it into a fortress. Finally, the third step: evidence. This was the most important piece. I borrowed a discreet outdoor camera from a friend, one small enough to blend in with the landscaping. If Karen wanted to keep breaking into my yard, I'd let her, but this time, I'd have proof. Not just my word against hers. By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, my backyard looked the same as always, quiet, inviting, serene. But beneath the surface, it was a carefully laid minefield. And right on cue, at 7:15 sharp, I heard the gate creak. Karen. I watched from the window as she strutted in, key in hand, sipping her lemonade like she owned the place. She slipped off her sandals, stretched like she was in some spa commercial, and then approached the pool. The moment she set foot on the deck, the motion sensor lights blazed to life. Karen froze, blinking against the sudden brightness. Then the sprinklers went off, drenching her with icy water before she could react. She shrieked, shielding her face, mascara running down her cheeks. I couldn't help it, I laughed. For the first time, she looked rattled. But instead of leaving, Karen straightened herself, drenched but defiant, and yelled toward my window. You think this will stop me? You're going to regret this. I pressed record on my phone, documenting every second. She wasn't retreating. She was escalating. And that told me one thing. My plan wasn't over. It was just beginning. For a brief moment, I thought I had the upper hand. Watching Karen sputter, mascara streaking, as sprinklers soaked her like an uninvited guest at a water park, it felt like justice. Sweet, satisfying justice. But I underestimated her. Karen wasn't just a nosy neighbor with too much free time. She was vindictive. And when she felt humiliated, she didn't retreat, she doubled down. The very next morning, an envelope slid under my door. The HOA seal glared up at me like a warning sign. I ripped it open, my stomach already nodding. Violation notice, unauthorized property modifications. I scanned the page, my anger mounting. Apparently, my motion sensor lights, sprinklers, and even my landscaping camera all violated community aesthetic standards. The fine? $500, with the threat of $100 added for each day the violations remained. Karen. She had reported me. I stormed outside, notice in hand, ready to march to her door. But I didn't have to, because there she was, leaning casually on my fence, sipping her ever-present lemonade. Good morning, neighbor, she said, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. Lovely weather, isn't it? I held up the notice. You did this. She smiled innocently. Did what? The HOA enforces the rules. I just bring things to their attention. You're out of control, I snapped. She tilted her head. No, darling. You're out of control. Setting up traps, drenching me with water like a misbehaving child. That's not very neighborly, is it? I clenched my fists, forcing myself not to explode. She wanted me angry. Angry people make mistakes. Instead, I asked quietly, why? Why my pool? Why me? For the first time, her smug mask cracked. Just slightly. Her lips twitched, her eyes hardened. Because people like you think you can just move in here, flaunt your money, and act like the rules don't apply to you, she hissed. This neighborhood was perfect before you showed up. And I'll make sure it stays that way. Before I could respond, she walked off, tossing her empty cup into my yard. That night, the war escalated again. I was in bed when a piercing screech ripped through the air. I bolted upright, heart pounding, and ran to the window. There, under the moonlight, Karen was dragging something across my driveway, spray paint cans. She was writing in big, bold letters. HOA violator. I rushed outside, phone in hand, recording. Karen! What the hell are you doing? She turned, wild-eyed, paint all over her hands. Teaching you a lesson, she screamed. For a moment, we stared at each other, me, clutching my phone as evidence, her standing there like some unhinged villain in the middle of the night. And in that silence, something shifted. This wasn't just about a pool anymore. This was war. and only one of us was going to win. By sunrise, the words HOA violator were still smeared across my driveway in dripping red paint. Neighbors slowed their morning walks just to gawk. Some whispered. Some shook their heads. And Karen, oh, she stood across the street, arms folded, grinning like she'd won. But what she didn't realize was that her late-night stunt had given me the very thing I needed, undeniable evidence. I spent the morning carefully photographing everything, the paint, the spray cans she'd left behind, even the flecks of red still staining her shoes when she strutted to get her mail. Then, I uploaded the security footage. Every frame was crystal clear, Karen dragging the cans, bending down to scrawl her masterpiece, then screaming at me when I caught her. I didn't go to the HOA. Not yet. Instead, I went higher. Straight to the local police precinct. The officer at the desk raised an eyebrow as I showed him the photos and video. Looks like vandalism, trespassing, maybe even harassment if this has been going on for a while, he said, jotting notes. Oh, it's been going on for weeks, I replied. And this isn't the first time she's broken into my property. He nodded. We'll open a case. You might want to file a restraining order, too. That night, when Karen crept out again, probably hoping to see if her paint had sunk deep into the driveway, I was waiting. Not outside. No shouting match. Just standing at the window, phone in hand, recording her reaction as two police cruisers rolled up the street. The lights hit her face like a spotlight. She froze, lemonade cups slipping from her hand and shattering on the pavement. Ma'am, one officer said, stepping out. We need to have a word. I couldn't hear their full conversation, but I could see Karen's face cycle through every shade of red imaginable. Shock. Anger. Indignation. And finally, something new, fear. After 10 tense minutes, the officers left with a warning filed, paperwork in progress. Karen stormed back to her house, slamming her door so hard it echoed down the block. For the first time, I felt like the tide was turning. But I wasn't finished. The next morning, I attended the HOA meeting, not as the quiet neighbor in the back, but with a flash drive full of evidence. When Karen, smug as ever, tried to accuse me of violations, I plugged in the drive and let the footage play. Her breaking into my pool. Her getting sprayed by sprinklers. Her spray painting my driveway like a deranged graffiti artist. Gasps rippled through the room. Even the HOA board members shifted uncomfortably. Karen's smile faltered. This, I said, looking straight at her, isn't about the rules. This is harassment. And unless the board takes action, the police already are. The room went silent. For the first time, Karen wasn't in control. For the first time, she was the one on the defensive. And I intended to keep it that way. Karen had always carried herself like a queen of the cul-de-sac. But after the HOA meeting, the cracks in her crown were impossible to miss. She no longer strutted to her mailbox. She no longer lingered by my fence. Instead, she lurked behind her curtains, watching, plotting. I knew it was only a matter of time before she tried something desperate. That time came sooner than I expected. 2 days after the meeting, a knock echoed at my door. I opened it to find Karen standing there, clutching a homemade pie, her smile stretched so wide it almost looked painful. "Neighbor," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. "I think we may have gotten off on the wrong foot." I raised an eyebrow. "Really? Which wrong foot are you talking about? The trespassing? The vandalism? The harassment?" Her smile faltered for a split second, but she recovered quickly. "Oh, you're so dramatic. It was just neighborly fun. No harm done, right?" She shoved the pie into my hands like it was a peace offering or a bribe. "Karen," I said flatly, "I don't want your pie. I want you to stay out of my life." Her eyes hardened. "Careful. You might regret not having me as a friend." And just like that, the mask slipped. She turned on her heel and stormed off, leaving me standing there with the pie. I set it on the porch railing, eyeing it suspiciously. Something told me I didn't want to find out what was inside. Later that night, the HOA president called me. His voice was uneasy. I don't know what you said to Karen, but she's been persuasive. She claims you've been harassing her. Says you edited those videos to make her look bad. I laughed in disbelief. You've seen the footage yourself. You know it's real. He sighed. I do. But she's threatening to rally other members, file complaints, even sue the board for negligence. She's making noise. Of course she was. Karen thrived on noise. And when she was cornered, she screamed the loudest. That weekend, her campaign went public. She held a little block party in her yard, inviting every neighbor except me. From my window, I watched her perform, telling exaggerated stories about how I targeted her, how I'd installed cameras to spy, how I'd set traps just to humiliate her. Some neighbors looked skeptical. Others nodded along. Fear has a way of bending people. But what Karen didn't know was that I wasn't just watching. I was recording. Every slanderous word, every wild accusation, captured on tape. She thought she was weaving a web to trap me. But what she didn't realize was that she was spinning herself into the center of it. And when I pulled the right thread, the whole thing was going to collapse. Karen's block party was supposed to be her grand comeback, her chance to spin the narrative and make me the villain. For a while, it almost worked. She had the charm turned on full blast, standing in front of her guests with a wine glass raised like she was delivering a political speech. He stalks me, she cried dramatically, gesturing toward my house. He records me constantly, harasses me, and now he's trying to destroy my reputation with doctored videos. All because I used his pool a couple of times. Who does that? Some neighbors exchanged uneasy glances. A few muttered their support. Others stayed quiet, unwilling to pick a side. I waited until she had reached her climax, until she was pointing at my house with righteous fury, before I stepped outside. The crowd hushed as I crossed the street, phone in hand. Funny thing, Karen, I said, loud enough for all to hear, I was recording just now. And I've been recording every lie you've told about me. Karen's smile faltered. Oh please, no one believes. I tapped my phone. A clip played, projected through a small portable speaker I'd brought. Her voice filled the air. He stalks me. He records me constantly, harasses me. Then I played the next clip, this one from 2 nights ago at the HOA meeting, where she swore she had never spoken to anyone about me. Her own contradictions lined up like dominoes, crashing into each other. The neighbors murmured. Some gasped. I wasn't finished. I played the video of her spray painting my driveway. Then the one of her slipping into my backyard pool in the dead of night. Then the most damning of all, the footage of her being caught by the police, lemonade cups slipping from her hands. The block party turned into a courtroom. And Karen was the defendant. Her face flushed red as the whispers turned against her. This is harassment, she shouted, voice shrill now, desperate. He set me up. He edited everything. He's out to get me. But the words rang hollow. The HOA president, who had come to observe the gathering, finally stepped forward. Karen, I've seen enough, he said firmly. This behavior is unacceptable. You've embarrassed the community, endangered property, and harassed a neighbor. Consider this your final warning before formal action is taken. Karen's mouth opened and closed, but no words came. For the first time since this nightmare began, she didn't look powerful. She looked small. As the neighbors dispersed, shaking their heads, Karen retreated into her house. The blinds slammed shut. The music cut off. And the street was quiet again. But I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. People like Karen don't just back down. They scheme. They plot. They lash out when cornered. And though I'd won this round, I couldn't shake the feeling that her next move would be her most dangerous one yet. For a few days, the neighborhood was calm. Karen's blinds stayed shut, her driveway empty, and her once loud voice silenced. It almost felt peaceful. But peace with Karen was always an illusion. On the fourth night, just past midnight, I heard it, the faint splash of water. My stomach dropped. I rushed to the window and, sure enough, there she was. Karen. In my pool again. Only this time, it wasn't mischief or arrogance written on her face. It was desperation. She wasn't lounging or sipping lemonade. She was tearing through the water like she wanted to erase something, cleanse herself of the humiliation she'd suffered. I grabbed my phone and hit record. She froze when she saw me step outside, dripping wet under the moonlight. "This is my pool," I said firmly. "My property. My space. And you don't belong here." Karen's chest heaved as she climbed out. "You ruined me," she hissed. "The neighbors, the HOA, they laugh at me now." "Me? After all I've done for this community." "You ruined yourself," I replied. Her eyes darted to my phone, then back to me. For a second, I thought she might lunge, try to snatch it from my hands. Instead, she laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "You think you've won?" she spat. "I am this neighborhood. Without me, it falls apart. You'll see." That was the moment I realized Karen wasn't going to stop until she destroyed herself completely. The next morning, I shared the latest footage with the HOA board and the police. The evidence was overwhelming: trespassing, vandalism, harassment, slander. This wasn't just a feud anymore. It was a case. 2 days later, a police cruiser pulled up in front of her house. Neighbors peeked through curtains as officers knocked on her door. Karen emerged in a bathrobe, shouting and flailing, insisting she was the victim, that the entire block was in on some grand conspiracy. But the officers didn't buy it. They placed her in handcuffs and led her down her perfectly manicured driveway, past the very people she had tried to control for years. Some watched silently. Others whispered. A few even smiled. As she was driven away, I stood by my gate, arms crossed. Our eyes met for a split second through the cruiser's window. Her glare could have set fire to the whole street. But it was over. The HOA officially banned her from holding any position of influence. Restraining orders were filed. The neighbors, once fearful, began to breathe easier. Barbecues returned. Kids played outside again. And my pool? It was finally mine. I sat by the water that evening, the surface calm and clear under the fading sun. For the first time since moving into this neighborhood, I felt a true sense of peace. Karen had made her final move. And she had lost.